Hey everybody, I'm Laura Adams, personal finance expert with Finder.com. I'm super excited to be here today with Sherice Torres from Circle. Sherice, will you give us a little bit of your background and tell us about your role at Circle?
Great. Hi, Laura. It's really great to be here. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Circle's a global financial technology firm that really works to enable businesses of all size to harness the power of digital currencies and public blockchains for everything from payments to commerce and financial applications worldwide. I'm a marketer, so I like to make things a little simpler than that and put them into simple human terms that my mom can understand. So you can really think of us as a bridge between traditional and digital finance for business. And I am really excited to serve as the Chief Marketing Officer here at Circle.
That's fantastic. I love putting it in simple terms. I agree with you. The financial space, especially, can seem very complex and almost a little intimidating to people.
Yes.
What would you say to somebody who is thinking about digital assets right now? Maybe they've heard a lot in the news and they're skeptical or they don't understand it. What do you think are the main benefits of digital assets right now, and how should we be thinking about using digital assets not only just right now but into the future?
So the thing that brought me into the digital asset space is really the ability to make real world impact. And that's where Circle tries to focus. If you think back to the early internet days, you had companies like Cosmo.com or Webvan.com. And when that first internet bubble burst, some of them weren't ready for prime time and they fell to the wayside. But then in that same time period, the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Googles of the world were born because they created technology that had real world impact and had a valuable impact to people and businesses around the world. So when you think about digital currency or Web3 overall, I really think it's helpful, especially in a time like this where there's a lot of noise and a lot of controversy, to really look to the companies like Circle that are looking to build real world impact rather than speculative value. We're not here to be a digital casino. We're really trying to take the best that Web3 has to offer and build real world solutions for people around the world. Let me give you an example there. A few weeks ago, we were able to announce a partnership with the Stellar Development Foundation, with UNHCR, the UN's refugee organization, as well as MoneyGram, to have a blockchain-based aid program for displaced persons in Ukraine. So what we were able to do through this program is the UNHCR provides aid in the form of USDC, the digital dollar that Circle issues, and they can carry that safely, securely in their digital wallets across borders or anywhere within Ukraine. And then when they're ready, they can cash out that USDC into any currency of their choice at any MoneyGram location around the world, including 4,500 locations within and across Ukraine. So this is when I think about the power of digital currency, it's for applications like this, solving a real world problem. It can be dangerous to take cash around with you, particularly if you're a displaced person. Through digital currencies and programs like this with the UNHCR, we were able to make a real world difference.
I can tell how passionate and excited you are about this. This is fantastic, and I love that case study. And for people who are thinking about how to support Circle, is this only B2B? Is it B2C? How can somebody who really is thinking about, I want to be a part of that, I love this mission, how can viewers become a part of that or just participate, in this new digital reality?
Sure. So I think it's two pieces. Circle is a B2B company. So our platform, our services are designed for businesses of all sizes, whether they're managing internal treasury, making international payments, securely managing their digital assets. We have programmable open platforms and APIs that make it easy for businesses to run their company at internet scale. But on the consumer side, it all is built on the foundation of USDC. So for those of you who might not be familiar, Circle is the issuer of USDC, that stands for US dollar coin. It is known as a digital dollar, or sometimes called a stable coin. And people and businesses can use USDC to move their money at internet speed without borders, without worrying about bank hours. It is a true digital dollar that people and businesses around the world can use to make their money move faster. So in terms of getting involved with Circle as a business, I'd say reach out to circle.com, learn more about how we can help your business move at internet scale. And for individuals, I would say USDC is a fantastic tool to help you, whether you are making payments individually through an institutional wallet or working on some type of exchange. You can work with our exchange partners around the world to use USDC on your institutional wallets.
You've done a lot in the fintech space related to DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion in your career. Tell me a little bit about that and how you were able to get involved, in that aspect of business.
Yeah, so on that front, it really is something that's a personal passion of mine. I know that coming from the city of Richmond, California, in the Bay Area, I was a first generation college student. And I know the difference that education and opportunities that a lot of folks where I came from did not know of. I certainly didn't know of growing up. I know the difference that having an education or having a network and mentors made in my career and in my life and the life of my family. So when I think about how I can give back, what's important to me, it's making sure to even that playing field and open the door for women, people of color, folks from historically underrepresented groups to have the same opportunities to build their dreams, to build their careers.
Sherice, you mentioned having a mentor. Tell me a little bit about that relationship. What are some tips to make for a successful mentor-mentee relationship? I'd love to know maybe what worked for you, because obviously that relationship was a springboard for your success. How can other people maybe develop that in their own life?
Yeah, so I've always believed that the mentor-mentee relationship really is two ways. Yes, the mentee is learning more from the mentor than the mentor might learn from them, but you really need to make sure to provide some value. So let me just give a story. When I was early in my career, during my early days at Nickelodeon, I would read our trade journals. I was the entertainment industry, so it was Variety or The Hollywood Reporter. And what I would do is I would look for folks within the organization that either had a role that I had never heard of before, they had just had a promotion, or they'd moved into a different position. And I'd send them an email and I'd say, hey, can I take 20 minutes, buy you coffee? And I just want to learn about your journey. I'm not looking for a job. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to learn from your journey. And what happened in those coffee chats is I was able to see how other people were able to make their way through their career. And while no one can follow someone else's footsteps in an exact fashion, there's always something. There's always a learning in there that you can take and apply to your life. So my first piece of advice is just reach out. Ask for that coffee. Ask for, in the world of Zoom and virtual meetings, it makes it a lot easier now than it used to be when I was starting my career. But don't be afraid to reach out to people in your company, people in your industry, to ask just to learn about their career journey. The second piece of that is around giving back. I've never been big on scheduling emails or sending an article just to stay top of mind for someone. But a mentor-mentee relationship is just that. It's a relationship. So I think the most successful relationships are those where you get to know what's important to your mentor, what's keeping them up at night about their career or their family life or general issues in the world, and just trying to send them information or be helpful in that way.
That's so great. Sounds like you have a real curiosity about people. What's some advice you could recommend to help people get over that fear of hearing no? Saying no, I don't want to have a coffee chat with you. How can you get the confidence just to be somebody who makes that first move?
Yeah, I've always looked at it as what's the worst that can happen? I tell my mentees all the time, no one is going to say no and I will destroy you. The worst case is that you're just going to say no. So you reach out to the next person. So I really believe it's a terrible example to use on a finance podcast, but just like they say in the lottery, if you don't play, you'll never win. I think it's similar. If you don't ask, if you don't risk that no, you're never going to get that yes. So be respectful, respect people's time, be willing and flexible with your time because they will reschedule many times, but no one is going to end you when they say no. It just means it's a no for now.
You sit on a lot of boards. What does that mean to people who don't even know what a board is? What does that job entail? And is it something that other women should aspire to?
Sure. So I am very fortunate to be on the board of Advanced Auto Parts, a Fortune 500 company, as well as LogicMark, a microcap company in the personal assistive devices category. So I'm literally at both ends of the spectrum of the companies I advise. And what it means to be a board member is you are an independent third party there to help with governance, with oversight, to make sure that the company is planning a strategic vision to help them be competitive today and keep the company going strong into the future. We are advisors to the executives of the company. The CEOs of publicly traded companies serve at at, hold on. Why can I not think of that phrase? Boards are responsible for placing and replacing CEOs because at the end of the day, we have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the companies are being strategically managed and managed well for the long term. I think for women in particular, serving on boards is an incredible development opportunity because you see the inner workings of companies throughout. I know more quite often about the companies on which I serve on their boards than sometimes I have the companies that I work for. Why? Because you have that 30,000-foot view into every part of the operation, into every challenge, every competitive issue, all of the financials. And I think that's an incredible opportunity. And there really is a need for many more women to serve on boards. I hate to say in 2022, I was the first woman to ever serve on the board of LogicMark. We should not be the first or the only in anything in 2022 or 2023, but this is still the case. So I think that board membership is critically important for women as part of our career development and, quite frankly, as part of growing our financial futures.
When it comes to financial futures, I would love to know if you have any money tips that you've used along the way that have helped you become successful or maybe manage money a little bit differently than you've seen your peers do.
So I think my background, being a first generation college student, being the first person in my family who has had a career to this level, I may be more conservative and traditional than most. A funny thing to say for someone working in Web3, but when it comes to my personal finance, I really follow some basic traditional guidance. I max out my 401 contributions every year. I did that from my first paycheck in my first job. Seems very small, but over time, that makes a huge difference. And if you're not accustomed to living on that money, you won't miss it. So do it from the beginning. And if you haven't done it yet, work with a financial advisor to see how you can catch up on that front. My second piece of advice is really, again, it sounds very basic, but live on less than you make. I know people like big lives and we want to treat ourselves. It's really important, especially how hard we can work in our lives, but it's important to save for the future so that you have the flexibility to live the way you want later on down the line. So I've always been very careful with my budgeting, very careful to live well below my means so that I have the flexibility to make choices, make different career choices, make different personal choices down the line, and obviously invest for my future. And last but not least, I know not everyone is a parent, but I happen to be the mother of two teenage boys. It's crazy to believe that they are teenage boys at this point. But from the moment that they were born, I started contributing as much as I could to their 529 college accounts. Again, it's these I wouldn't say set it and forget it, but these automatic deductions so you just don't think about it. So that when it comes time to pay for college, when it comes time to retire, you've been seeding that nest egg for years.
I love your strategy of automation. Are there any pieces of career advice that you would give women in a maybe in a fintech career or who are wanting to get into finance or technology?
I would say always take a bet on yourself. When I think about my career, if you look at it on paper, there really is no reason that I should have been in many of the roles that I'm in. I started in consulting, which many people do, but the bulk of my career was spent in a completely different industry. I was in the traditional entertainment industry. I ran elements of global consumer products for Nickelodeon, MTV, and Comedy Central. But the common thread in my career was running businesses, understanding how markets, understanding competitive markets and how to grow into white spaces competitively for Nickelodeon's consumer products business. And then, two, really looking at what is the next phase of that business. I didn't intentionally go into digital transformation or technology, but I got there by looking really at what was next. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my career story, then bring it back to your question of how women can make that leap into technology or fintech in particular. So, when I was at Nickelodeon, I ran everything from our video game and DVD business to toys and ultimately digital video. And what I found was consumer trends were moving away from what we consider traditional products more into the digital space, whether that be streaming video, downloadable video, streaming video games. And I then took my business from traditional consumer products, DVDs, toys, health and beauty aids, into that digital space. Well, when I thought about what the next right step for my career would be, I wanted it to be more in the digital space because, again, that's where consumer trends were moving. That's what brought me to Google and into the Google shopping business, doing marketing for Google Shopping and a project we had years ago called Google Shopping Express that no longer exists. But I used my background in retail, consumer products, and retail marketing to leverage that into a role in a technology company because I knew that digital transformation was what would take business forward. So that's where I wanted to take my career forward. You know, I think another piece of advice would be to really be open to a bit of serendipity. When I came to Google, I was completely prepared, completely qualified to work in their shopping business. Again, 15 years of consumer products background. And they gave me a little business called Google Wallet to run the marketing for. They said, we really want you to focus on shopping, but Google Wallet, keep it on the tracks. See what we can do with this business. 2 months to the day after joining Google, Apple Pay launched, and my life overnight became all things fintech. So my piece of advice there is follow the trends, be on the edge of whatever business you're in, but take the opportunities when they come and always be willing to learn. So I jumped in and I became a student of regulations of consumer behavior in the fintech space so that I could help transform that business. And over time, we took Google Wallet, ultimately became Google Pay, from about 12 million users to over 100 million users in the time that I was there, from US only to 10 countries in the time that I had in that business. To your larger question around what should women do to get into tech or get into the finance space, I think it's really great to use the skills that you have and leverage them into what's needed in those spaces. So for example, when I interviewed at Google, I did not have a traditional technology background, but what I did have was knowledge of the traditional retail space And with Google Shopping and the Google Shopping Express product, they were looking to get into that space. So they needed someone with my experience. So don't feel like you have to have 100% of the requirements in the job description before you go for the job. Understand how you fit in, how your skills are unique and contribute to whatever role you're looking to apply for.
Oh, such good advice. Is there anything you'd like to recommend for the viewer that they go for anything happening at Circle or anything else you'd like to point them to?
Sure. So I would love to point out two things. First, I know that your podcast is really about financial inclusion, particularly around women, and financial inclusion and building a more inclusive financial system is really core to Circle's mission. And we have two things that I'm really excited about. First, we recently announced, actually back in 2021, a new initiative called Circle Impact that's really designed to help drive financial inclusion, financial literacy for traditionally underrepresented groups, and really powering humanitarian aid and disaster relief, like the UNHCR program I talked about earlier. When I think about the traditional financial system, you know this, Laura, often the people who need it most, underrepresented groups, have been traditionally excluded from the traditional financial, historically excluded from the traditional financial system. So we're really excited about a program like Circle Impact, where we can allocate a share of our reserves into minority-owned depository institutions and community banks, so that as Circle grows our income, those minority-owned depository institutions and community banks can share in that interest income with us. We're really focusing on historically Black colleges and universities and other institutions to make sure that digital financial education is universally accessible. We want to make sure that the future of digital finance is so much more equitable and inclusive than its analog predecessors. And last but not least, we talked about the rapid response team that we have looking to develop humanitarian interventions worldwide using the speed and ease of transfer of digital currencies to help when it's needed the most.
Those are very powerful initiatives. Thank you again so much for explaining Circle and what's happening there and all of the really interesting things that you're doing. So again, thank you so much for your time. This has been really great to connect with you.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay, take care.